It's time to get you caught up with all things sports.
Yes! 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 Yes!
On the throw-in.
One thing is certain. None of this is possible without you, the listeners.
From baseball, football, wrestling, and more, covering local Cincinnati sports stories, news, and highlights.
Why is he always calling me meat?
With your host, Justin Trento.
When it's all said and done, we're going to look back and remember this is what started it all.
Available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Let's play the ball! Let's play the ball!
Alrighty, what is going on, everyone? And welcome to another episode of The Throw-In. It is a Friday night, February 16th, 2024. My name is Justin, and for the next 2 hours, we'll be talking, I'm going to say a lot about baseball, particularly Cincinnati Reds. That's kind of going to be our game plan of attack in tonight's episode, because spring training is underway in the sense of pitchers and catchers have reported. If not all position players have reported yet, they have to do so by the end of this weekend. We are a week away from spring training games where we can finally take a look at, ball players and how, who's going to be where. And this is not just a chance for, we talk about the chances of, all right, for players to get their feet wet, that, they should already be in condition. But they get a chance to get a couple outings in, get a couple bats underneath them. Umpires get a chance to get back out there, calling balls and strikes and trying not to mess up so badly. Same thing for coaches. As well as for fan base to get out there and for announcers to get out there and start calling ball games and get all of those, shake off all of those, the cobwebs out there. So, it's all leading up to just 41 days until opening day in Major League Baseball. Now, I'm going to say that this is dated to March 28th will be the official opening day of baseball. But as we know, the Padres and the Dodgers will open up Major League Baseball in Korea on the 22nd, a week before. So, we're just kind of getting things loose. So I want to talk a lot about the Reds, talk about the expectations we have and whatnot. So, majority of this show will be about the Cincinnati Reds. For anyone who is driving in the northern Kentucky area, Cincinnati, please be safe. Earlier today, I knew that the weather was been calling for some snow. How bad it was going to be, no one could really tell. But so it started actually snowing around 4:30ish, and there's a nice good blanket of snow on the floor ready. And so it's supposed to go on for a few more hours. The wife just got back from picking us up some Subway for dinner, and she was soaked, and there was a nice good blanket of snow on there. So if you are in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, and you're driving home tonight, or whatever the case may be, please drive home safely. But, so we'll talk about the Cincinnati Reds. I also want to talk a little bit about Drew McIntyre specifically. Kind of want to address the future contracts of some wrestlers that are coming up here post WrestleMania. And then, and just kind of see where that goes. Getting you guys ready for the weekend. And it was just, great to be out here. If you guys are watching us on our Facebook, YouTube, Twitter page, X page, Twix, whatever you want to call it, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Don't forget to hit those notifications so you don't miss a single episode. Be sure to download us on our podcast so you don't, you can take this on the road with you wherever you go. You could now visit our website, which is actually posted on our screen. Got updated our new background. It's up there in the top right, up there here. You can visit www.tncsportstalkshow.com. That is www.tncsportstalkshow.com, where you can find all the latest blogs, tweets, posts, videos, podcasts, you name it, is all up there on the website. I encourage you to check it out. Subscribe so you can get the daily news feeds and whatnot that comes across the website. Other than that, man, it's gonna be a good night, I guess. I was gonna watch SmackDown, but a couple weeks ago, my wife kind of reconfigured the living room, and I normally would have the TV in the corner or in a diagonal direction where I could have SmackDown on. But instead of that, she ended up putting it diagonal, kind of making a L shape in this area. So behind my camera, there is the TV facing the opposite direction out towards the dining table and the kitchen. Not a bad setup. She did a great job. But it's been, I can't watch SmackDown now. Normally I could have it on mute. But I can't do that now. So, I know that there's more qualifying matches heading towards Elimination Chamber in a week from tomorrow. I know that Roman and The Rock is supposed to attend, and I'm just going to have to watch that at a later date. So a lot of that and what's going on live is going to be addressed probably sometime next week, unless I'm able to do a video, an episode over the weekend. So, but we will be covering all of that going down your way here in the next couple of days, because there's still so much to talk about that. And in the upcoming segment, after our first break, I'll address a little bit more away from the story, but in regards to that matter. Other than that, as far as football goes, I am going to kind of just sit on the back burner for a little bit. I know that we're seeing things happen and taking place, but, I can only explain to you guys where I feel the Cincinnati Bengals need help. And, I'm not picking on anybody on the Bengals staff. I'm not going after Joe Burrow. I'm not going after Zach Taylor. But I feel like a lot of this year's draft for the Bengals will depend on how they handle free agency prior to the draft. From my understanding, it looks like the Bengals may use the franchise tag on T. Higgins, which will keep him another year. And I understand that T. Higgins, he has expressed that if there are better options out there, he will keep an open mind to them. But he does still want to stay in Cincinnati, which is good. We already know Tyler Boyd is testing free agency, and we wish him the best of luck, because I think, I think that Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase are a good enough receivers that deserve to play on championship teams. I'm not saying the Bengals are not a championship team, but they have a lot of work, in my opinion, from where I'm seeing them and how I watched them play over the last year. They have a lot of work to accomplish this offseason. I'm almost to the point, and I think I've said this before, I think that the Bengals have a very limited room for their success. We just got done seeing the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl for the third time in 6 years. Something that is not typically heard of. And then we seen Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens put aside their differences, okay, and got everything cleared up. And now they went to the AFC Championship. Although the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, Baltimore was the dominating team in the AFC. And whenever you look at a team like Kansas City or Baltimore, you kind of grow a little bit of fear in facing them, regardless if you're home and away. And I know that Cincinnati has that better record over Patrick Mahomes right now, and I get that. But those are the top two teams in the AFC right now, heading into this coming up season, that I would say you will get scared. There's fear drawn across that board facing them. But look how this conference has formed this past year. It's not this, football is not like baseball where 162 games, absolutely anything can happen. A lot of times you get into the NFL and you see a lot of similar teams repeat themselves or at least contending for several years. Kansas City, Baltimore, I believe they're right back at the top of the conference again. For sure they're right back on the top of their division. They didn't just win their division, by a thin line. They walked all over the AFC North. And although the Bengals had a winning record, great. You left off a positive note. Did you make the postseason? No. The Bengals were expected or had the expectation of either winning their division or having the 5th seed comfortably in the postseason. And yes, we can go out there and pinpoint injuries played a huge factor in how the Bengals, progressed throughout this past year. And I get that. But now we're in the offseason. We go back to the drawing boards. And, it seems to be the same agendas each and every year. Well, how can we better our offensive line? How can we protect Joe Burrow? We went out there and we drafted players in the years past. We went out there and we picked up free agents. I mean, and then the next category is, well, how can we improve how can we dynamically change but keep the same on our defense? Because as our veterans are leaving and they're exploring other options and we may not want to re-sign their contracts, we have to be able to either draft or pick up guys that are able to play and are able to give us a decent defense. Because I don't know if you guys paid attention to the Super Bowl, but a winning team such as the Chiefs, and let's not forget about the 49ers defense, were impeccable. Probably one of the best defensive games I've seen in quite some time. And if you're the Bengals, you're looking, well, how can we be the Chiefs next year and win a Super Bowl? We have to have an unstoppable defense that could play all 4 quarters. As a matter of fact, screw it. When I was playing football in high school, they say you don't train to play 4 quarters. You train to play 5 quarters. And so we do not need a defense like they've been in the past where they dominate and they can control majority of the game. But then when it gets down to the final drive, they let them walk on down the field and let them score. The Kansas City Chiefs defense does not allow that to happen. So how can we be better than the Chiefs? Well, we have to have a better defense. And, we have a lot of good potential young, great guys defensively. And hopefully over the next, 2-3 years, as we watch them grow up and we watch them develop, we can see a strong defensive front. But now on top of all of that, we still have wide receiver issues. You know, I saw a post earlier this week, kind of just a joke post about, hey, let's franchise tag T. Higgins, toss on a 4th round pick in 2026, and let's trade him to the Tennessee Titans for Derrick Henry and like 10 first round picks, whatever. And, I kind of got a kick out of it because, there is a strategy of what the Bengals could and should do heading into this offseason. I think the fans could vouch that you want to keep you want to keep this dynamic trio as packed together as possible. Well, Boyd is out, so you want to keep T. Higgins, so franchise tag him. And I agree with that. But then you're going to want to either pick up a free agent or promote some of your younger talented receivers, or go out there and pick up a receiver in the draft that's NFL ready for the 3rd slot. Last month, when I mentioned there was a possibility out there that, Mike Evans was going to hit free agency. Now, it was just a crazy thought. I'm not thinking that this is anywhere near happening. But if you think about a Mike Evans on the roster, you think of, he's a top tier receiver. And I haven't really looked at at the free agent receivers. But my concern is that if you franchise tag T. Higgins, you buy yourself another year. And if you don't go back to the AFC Championship, nonetheless the Super Bowl, I doubt you keep Higgins on your roster unless you're willing to give him an unbearable amount of money, which I think you're trying to save for a Jamar Chase. Therefore, playing that scenario out for the rest of the team is very important. What do? Do you go? If you keep Higgins for another year, do you take that risk and pick up a free agent that is a top tier receiver as a 3rd slot when most of them are 1 or 2s, and you hope that 3-punch combination could get you to a championship? Or do you draft out of the draft this year, knowing that you still need help in the offensive line, and you can never hurt but picking up another defensive player? Do you offer a multi-year contract to T. Higgins so that you can draft a 3rd round pick or pick up a receiver for 1 or 2 years off the free agent market? But based off of what you do with T. Higgins, which I'm believing that they're going to franchise tag him, so now you need slot number 3 open, and you got a couple, you'll get a couple options because I know you're going to draft a receiver this year. But all of this is going to determine how you play your draft picks this year. And don't forget, the Bengals are not number 1. They're not going to draft up in the high in the on the draft picks line. And so we're going to be limited on what we do and do not get this year. But it's going to be interesting as, for the next couple weeks, as we get to the end of April and we get into the draft, to see what the Bengals do. It's also going to be interesting to see what other teams do around the Bengals because, I know Cleveland wants to improve from last year. I know Houston and the Indianapolis Colts are trying to improve from last year. And let's not forget that the Chargers, and maybe I'm blowing this out of proportion, but the Chargers have probably one of the most dangerous head coaches right now in the league. Jim Harbaugh knows college football players better than anyone else. I could bet your bottom dollar he's going to succeed for the next 2 to 3 years when it comes down to draft picks. So time will tell, but there's still, I want to see how this Bengals team unravels. And like I said, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. I want them to succeed. I think that they're still very talented to succeed, but they got to make the right decisions. And I think that right now, and this is what makes football fun to watch, is that there's so much great talent out there that you just can't bet on one team unless it's the Kansas City Chiefs. You can't just bet on one team. All right, let's take a timeout. When we come on back, I want to talk about some contracts in the WWE that's coming up and how that plays into the storylines as we head to the road to WrestleMania. That's still to come. You guys are listening to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel would like to give a big shout out to StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk. You can create podcasts, videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. For more information, check out StreamYard.com. All right, we are counting down the days to WrestleMania, which is 50 days to WrestleMania. As of tonight, about 7 weeks, if I'm counting correctly. And you know what surprises me the most is that we are a week away from Elimination Chamber. 7 weeks away from a two-night, not one night, but two-night WrestleMania. And we only have 2 matches accounted for. Two matches are currently on the dock for WrestleMania 40. That is Bayley versus Io Sky, and that is Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns. Now, Elimination Chamber, we will see 2 more matches be confirmed. And from there, we're about 6 weeks or less away from WrestleMania 40. I don't know how many matches are intended to be on both nights. But you still have championships that have not been confirmed to have a WrestleMania spot. And you think about guys like Logan Paul and Gunther who carry titles. You think about the tag team titles that the Judgment Day currently has. And, you think about the women's tag team titles. You think about feuds that are just generating. And, a lot of it could be done within the 6 weeks, but I'd like to see a little bit more being promoted as, you're trying to get this show, you're trying to get WrestleMania 40 hyped up. It's a big show. It's WWE's biggest show. And maybe they're just a bit distracted from this controversy between Roman Reigns, The Rock, Cody Rhodes, and Seth Rollins now. So, I've heard reports about how there could be even a tag team match of Roman and The Rock taking on Seth and Cody night 1, which means you're calling for double action for a lot of them. There's a lot of talent there that deserves a WrestleMania spot. One guy that really stands out over the last few months, in my opinion, has to be Drew McIntyre. You can disagree with me if you want, but he's kind of been playing the biggest heel on Raw here lately. He's targeted Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, even Damian Priest. You're wondering, do you like him? Do you hate him? And it kind of, you feel like you're starting to see some true colors out of him. Hey, listen, I am an elite star. I deserve, or I belong at the top of the food chain here. And I'm going to demand respect and to be up there. He's qualified for the Elimination Chamber last week. But the note to be mentioned for is that his contract's coming up. He's one of the few guys that his contract's coming up after WrestleMania. As a matter of fact, at the end of April. And so, the question, and I've talked about this a few weeks prior heading into the Royal Rumble. I've actually had this conversation with Steve Barber over there on Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. And the question was, what do you do with guys like Drew and Finn who have yet to sign another deal with the WWE? They could potentially be walking out of April as a free agent. And, they are kind of in the middle of storylines and feuds that you kind of want to see unfold. One of my favorite ones that I've been hoping to see for here, after the Judgment Day starts dismantling, because all good things do come to an end, is a Damian and Finn Balor. I think that would be a good feud, even if it's for a championship. Hell, they currently held the unified tag team titles, at which I thought that last 2 weeks ago when they faced DIY for the titles, they could have dropped them and led to something different. But Drew McIntyre, his contract's coming up, and probably one of the biggest question is, as he heads into WrestleMania, one of the big, as one of the biggest heels carrying Raw right now, how do you utilize him? Interesting, thought process for me when I saw that these qualifying matches came into place. There's a handful of guys that could argue that have already had existing or past storylines with Seth Rollins. So for me, it just makes sense. So, for example, Logan Paul. You saw Logan Paul and Seth Rollins last year at WrestleMania. Now, Logan Paul has a United States championship. I just don't see that working out. Randy Orton has had a WrestleMania with Seth Rollins. They have history with each other. Drew McIntyre has had history with Seth Rollins. And for me, I look at it as what makes sense. I know WWE can be spontaneous and they could lead you into multiple directions. But when I look at it and what makes sense to me and how a storyline can make sense, and maybe this is too plain for a lot of people to listen to, but Drew McIntyre makes sense walking out of the Elimination Chamber as the number one contender to Seth Rollins' World Heavyweight Championship. Seth Rollins is still dealing with his knee injury. And the only concern that I have is what physical condition is Seth Rollins going to be in heading into WrestleMania, even if he doesn't have a match between now and then. But one small landing can alter the original plan for Seth Rollins' match. Now, I think I'm going to go out there on a limb here on February 16th of 2024 that Seth Rollins will be dropping the World Heavyweight Championship. Matter of fact, I think that when it's all said and done, Damian Priest will successfully cash in his Money in the Bank contract and be Sir World Heavyweight Champion. My opinion. But how do you get to there? And when you look at storylines that just make sense, I see Drew McIntyre sitting at the front and center of that. I don't see Dominic Mysterio in winning that World Heavyweight Championship match. I don't think they'll put the title on him quite yet. Drew McIntyre is probably the closest thing that you have when it comes down to a face heel concept for WrestleMania to challenge for that World Heavyweight Championship. You get to WrestleMania, and even if this has to be a triple threat match where Damian somewhere in the middle of the match to help Seth Rollins and carry him through that match. Remember, Seth doesn't have to win or doesn't have to be pinned or submitted to lose the match. So it could start off 1-on-1. And if something happens to Seth Rollins where he tweaks his knee again, or, somewhere in the middle of the match, Damian Priest could come running out, cashing in. We've seen it before, becomes a triple threat match, and Damian Priest takes advantage of the vulnerability of both men. This event, Seth Rollins then goes on and takes care of whatever he needs to take care of with his injuries. And this could also lead to a future feud between Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre, which we've seen already on Raws in the past earlier this year. So that's for me why it makes sense. A little too much. When I see Damian, I see Drew in the ring, it's kind of like, dude, they go 100%. I like what I'm seeing. There's been reports and that there's been conversations between WWE and Drew McIntyre. So it looks like they're trying to negotiate some sort of deal. But you look at right now, the men that could create a good story. Maybe this feud, this storyline, whatever you want to call it, is too predictable. I say so be it. It's the execution of how it's done that will determine how great of that storyline is going to be. I could walk you through it and you can be like, well, it's just too predictable. It's one thing to talk about it. It's the next thing to execute it. And although even if it looks great it could look like garbage on paper. But if you execute it the right way, it could be something magical. You got Damian on Raw. You got Drew on Raw. You got Seth on Raw. The World Heavyweight Championship stays on Raw because, in my opinion, for now, I mean, if Cody is to go on to win the unified, undisputed WWE Universal Championship at Mania, take it off for Roman Reigns, then that title goes to Raw, but you could automatically he goes back to SmackDown because that's what the brand has. The other guy that I was thinking that makes a really good candidate for winning the Chamber is Randy Orton. And I think for me and I've said this weeks ago in the past, it's the same reason why I nominated him for winning the Universal Champion, the WWE Universal Championship off of that Fatal 4-Way match at the Rumble to head to WrestleMania and face Cody Rhodes. And I thought that was a logical storyline, and we didn't see that. So this is his second opportunity. Now, listen, I would be second to motion if I got a chance to see John Cena versus Randy Orton one last time at WrestleMania, especially. I would, hands down, drop whatever you're doing. Let's go for that. But I realize, listen, Randy Orton has that feud with Seth. He's had a champion, he's faced Seth Rollins before at Mania. And Randy I don't feel like Randy has much time in the ring left. I don't know. And I'm taking it for what I see it. He's had a couple major back surgeries done. Not one, not two, but a few of them. And this is why he went off, for the last 18 months trying to recover. And, I'm not, he has probably the best trainers, the best surgeons, and the best therapists to help him recover and to get back into a shape he needs to be into. But I've also had recently a back surgery done, a fusion to be precise. And, we're coming up on 3 months and I'm still struggling myself. Now, I'm not Randy Orton, but, either he's done one incredible job on selling, or you can see that matches limit him. The time of a match limits him in the ring and his ability to move. He was, from what I saw last Friday night, was it last Friday night? Yeah, when he qualified for that Elimination Chamber match. What I saw out of Randy Orton was that he was holding his back generously. And so I just feel that his time is coming near. And we may not have the same opportunity at next year's WrestleMania to have that one moment. Now, I don't, like I said, you don't have to have a Drew or a Randy win the title. Like I said, you have Damian, who has the Money in the Bank briefcase, to make it a triple threat match. But, it's just a thought out there. But I see Drew. This is going to be the same thing for Finn. It would be, I just don't see Drew going anywhere other than the WWE. I can't see him pick up and appear on AEW or even Impact Wrestling. So I like that the WWE is acknowledging Drew, but I also like, that this maybe has re-sparked interest of, all right, well, now since you're using me correctly, I want to stay. But for me, that's where I like to see WrestleMania headed, which means you'd have to be pretty close to coming up with a deal with Drew, because this is a feud that ends up taking you into SummerSlam. Hell, it even takes you into Survivor Series if all the cards are played correctly. All right, when we come on back, I don't know, we'll transition to some baseball conversations here. Thank you guys for tuning in to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right, welcome back here on The Throw-In, bottom half of hour number 1. And it is baseball season, you guys. I can't be more excited. I hope you guys are too. Hour number 2, we'll talk heavily about the Cincinnati Reds. I want to know what your expectations are for the Red Legs as they enter in another year of baseball here. When you talk about baseball, what's been gaining a lot of popularity here lately has been the Banana Belt baseball. You can find them on there you go. All right. Hold on one second. Let me see what I'm looking at here, because I was getting some glitches on my laptop during the break, so I jumped over to the YouTube on my phone to follow up, and what I noticed, let me see here, because what I noticed was that we saw a lot of I sort of noticed Banana Baseball coming back on. So yeah, I think the season starts officially tomorrow, because the day is the 16th. According to the schedule on the website, they begin play at Peoria in Arizona. So this is all just kind of live complex stuff. but it's exciting stuff. So I just kind of, this is all baseball related stuff. So let's look at the rules. I was hearing them talk about the rules, which was yesterday. All right, rule number 1. Win the inning, get the point. So it's a little different. They really make this. If you never watched Banana Baseball, it's realistically just it's a different version of baseball. 2-hour time limit. It's fast play. It's getting the fans involved. For me, I'm a classical person, but I enjoy Banana Baseball. Whenever I can catch it, I will catch it. So, yeah. Anyways, so rule number 1, win the inning, get the point. Every inning is worth 1 point. The team that gets the most runs in an inning gets a point for that inning, except for the last inning where every run counts. Okay, that works. So then rule number 2, it's a 2-hour time limit. You get the idea. No new inning can be started after 2 hours. The last inning of the game, every run counts. So if it takes you 2 hours to play 4 innings, then the 4th inning, every run counts. Rule number 3, if the hitter steps out of the batter's box, is considered a strike. Rule number 4, no bunting, because it sucks. If a batter bunts, they're ejected from the game. Batters can steal first. On any pinch of an at-bat, the hitter can try to steal first base. This can happen on a pass ball, wild pitch, or any time a hitter chooses. So if you're hitting and you're down 0-2 or you're down 0-1, and the ball, you think, hey, the ball gets away from the catcher and you want to take your chances to go to first base and you make it safely, then cool beans, steal first, which is something interesting. Rule number 6, no walks allowed. If a pitcher throws ball 4, it becomes a sprint. You got to sprint. The hitter will take off running while every defensive player on the field must touch the ball before it becomes live. The hitter can advance as many bases as they want. The ball does not have to touch the catcher or pitcher. So, ball 4 is pitched to the catcher. He throws it to third, to short, to second, to first before it becomes a live ball. So in that time frame, you could run to first and take your chances to second, and before and take that risk of not getting out. So if they're throwing it slow and you're a speedy guy, there you go. No mound visits allowed. Let's keep the game moving. No mound visits from the coach, catcher, or any player at any time. Hype your pitcher up from as far if needed. That's great. Rule number 8, if a fan catches a foul ball, it's an out. Why not let the fans get some of the action? Whatever you do, just don't catch the bananas foul ball, right? Yeah, no. If you catch a foul ball, regardless, whoever catches a foul ball, it is an out. As long as it's caught. Showdown tiebreaker. If a game is tied at the end of the 2-hour time limit, the game will go into a showdown tiebreaker. In each showdown, the hitter must score. If they score, it's worth 1 point. If they get out, it's worth no points and is called a showdown shutdown. Round 1, pitcher, catcher, and 1 on fielder versus 1 hitter. All right, so let's say that you have the pitcher, you have the catcher. Let's say that 1 fielder. This is if it's a tied ball game after 2 hours. And it's good understanding this, because if you're going to head over to YouTube and say, hey, I'm going to watch this game, you might also understand some of the gameplay. So if this is the showdown, you're done 2 hours, it's completed, and you get round 1 is a pitcher, a catcher, and then you get 1 fielder, right? That fielder could be placed anywhere versus one hitter. If that fielder is playing over more towards the right field side and the hitter hits it to the left field side, he has to score all 4 bases before that ball gets back in. Round 2 is just the pitcher and catcher versus one hitter. Round 3 is it's a pitcher, a catcher, and one fielder versus one hitter with the bases loaded. That's crazy. In the final showdown, every run counts as a point. If no team has won after 3 showdowns, they will continue with bases loaded on one fielder until one team has won. If at any point a home run is hit over the outfield wall, it's a walk-off win and the game is over. Simple concept. The banana ball challenge rule, and I think this is interesting. In banana ball, each team is allowed to challenge the one ruling on the field. The coach of each team will have the challenge prop / item that they must throw / shoot onto the field before the next pitch for the play has been the play to be challenged. The play will be reviewed by the broadcast and the call will be replayed to the umpire field chief to make the call. If a team wins a challenge, then the call is overruled. The team will retain a challenge for later in the game. If the call is upheld, the challenge is inconclusive. They will lose their opportunity to challenge the rest of the game. You can challenge from the first inning to the last inning. 3 categories of challenges. You can challenge a foul ball if it's foul or fair. The force or tag play calls, catch plays in the outfield or infield. A fan can challenge a game. In addition to each team challenge, the fans will have one opportunity to challenge a ruling during the game. Prior to the game, the fans will choose one fan to represent them. The fan representative will have the opportunity to challenge one play a night. If the fan representative chooses to challenge, the fan will shoot off confetti and hold up the fan challenge sign to make it official. Last but not least, okay? One time a game, it's called the golden batter rule. One time a game, a team may send any hitter in the lineup to bat in any spot. The goal of the rule, your best hitter can hit when the game is on the line. Examples, due up in the 9th are the 6th, 7th, and 8th. The 6th and 7th make it the first 2 outs. The team can use the golden batter rule to hit their third hitter in the 8 hole. The number 3 reaches base. The 8 hole would stay in the game, but he would not hit. The next batter will be in the 9 hole. If the number 3 hitter was on base and his spot is up in the lineup to bat, then the number 8 hitter would become the pitch runner. Also, if eligible, the designated pitch runner could run. The golden batter could technically hit back-to-back in one inning if the team chooses. All right, so let's break this down a little bit. If you are 1, 2, 3 up in the inning, you have the bases loaded, nobody out. Your number 4 hitter hits, he strikes out, let's say. And with the game on the line, you trust him going out there again. You can opt out the number 5 slot hitter to hit for the 4th slot hitter. These are rules that Banana Ball has made to help improve the dynamic of the game. Keeps you interested in watching. Yeah, you don't just see the dancing, the music, and all that yada yada fun stuff on the field, which makes it fun to watch. But it's a change of a game. And although Major League Baseball I don't see Major League Baseball taking approach to any of this. It's just fun. Fun under the sun. I'm trying to look at it here today. So here's my thing. According to their schedule, it says that they play tonight, or they play tomorrow night at Peoria State Conference. If you go to PBTV, on YouTube, it's a packed house. They're live right now. And it says Mariners Spring Training Stadium. It's a world tour. I don't really I don't really see anything indicating if it's a game or not. I mean, probably it is. I don't know. But I ran across that today. I was like, you know what? I got to give you guys that I got to give you guys that, that breakdown, because baseball is baseball, man. From Independent League, Baseball League, they're playing tonight. Game tonight. That's what I'm thinking. So, but they're taking a trip. They're in Peoria, and it's a lot of fun. We jump course to the Cincinnati Reds. Let's talk some Reds baseball, expectations, and much more. Coming up next, you guys are listening to The Throw-In. Thank you so much. Stay tuned as The Throw-In continues here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, hour number 2 here is given to you thanks to Spreaker. From iHeartRadio, Spreaker is not only a audio listening platform. You can upload podcasts, view analytics, and monetize your work, distributing across all major audio platforms. Check out Spreaker.com for more information. We'll upload the show tomorrow morning through Spreaker. I'd like to try to maybe download some of our segments here onto Spreaker as our individual concepts go here. All right, baseball season has arrived. Let's get ready to talk some Cincinnati Reds baseball. The expectations for the Redlegs in 2024 as we kind of just, we're sitting back. Let's reflect for a moment about what the Reds have done. Before we could do that, talked about Banana Baseball Battle half of hour number 1. They're currently taking on the Party Animals, and I'm subscribed to them. I encourage you guys to subscribe to the Savannah Bananas. It's a YouTube channel, and you can and you can catch all their games on YouTube. Okay, great broadcast. I think it's great. Very interactive. So I have that on kind of in my background here. But let's talk about the Bearcats, who opened up college baseball. Opening day was this afternoon. The Bearcats were in the tournament in Jacksonville, Florida, taking on Jacksonville Dolphins, from my understanding. They had a doubleheader today because of inclement weather expected tomorrow. They kicked things off today at 2 p.m., and they ended up falling short to Jacksonville 6-8, and the doubleheader they lost 11-3. You guys could check out them on Sunday. As a matter of fact, they're not on TV Sunday, but Sunday they will be playing their game at 11 in Jacksonville before coming home to Northern Kentucky on Tuesday against Northern Kentucky. First home game on the season. So if you got nothing to do, you're in the area, want to check out some college baseball, just baseball nonetheless, check out the Cincinnati Bearcats. Head on over to Cincinnati Bearcats baseball website. It's Cincinnati Bearcats Athletics.com, I believe, for more information. All right, so let's get down to business. The Cincinnati Reds 2024. And I want to start off by just saying the Reds have definitely showcased a lot of potential last year. And I think the Reds exceeded their expectations more so than what I think fans expected them to exceed at. Cincinnati, because of the Bengals winning so much here recently, I think has a high expectation of winning ball games and of winning titles and going to the postseason. And when you see one of your professional sports teams succeed, you just can't help but want the same for your other one. And when we began last year, we knew that the Castellinis kept Nick Krall under shackles. He was, not to spend money. He was to simply, work through the minor league system and bring up the guys that they needed throughout the course of the year. And that was fine. Okay. But there was so much damage that was done to the fan base that we had to kind of, all right, we had to remain optimistic to see what happened. Well, we saw right off the bat these younger guys that were prospects that we had high hopes for. Eventually, we knew they were going to eventually be called up. We just expected them to be called up towards the end of the year. They got called up in the first month or two. Talking about Ellie Dela Cruz, talking about Matt McLean in specific terms, right? And these young group of guys have done something that I didn't even imagine was possible. And that was bringing fans back to the stadium, which, if you ask me, that was the first and foremost solution that you had to resolve before you can make the next step. But see, the Reds didn't stop there. They went all out and they ended up contending for a wild card spot. They contended for the first place in the NL Central. They contended to be one of the better teams in baseball this past year with a mixed group of guys and kids that were trying to find their feet in the major leagues. Now, I think that there's such a high expectation, such a high hope that the Reds can repeat their action, especially since the Bengals are going to go to the playoffs this year, that maybe the bars are just a little too high up. Don't get me wrong. I want to see Cincinnati Reds go to the playoffs. I want them to win the NL Central. I want them to have the first round, the number one seed. I want them to have success. And I think they have a young, talented group that's mixed with veterans and rookies that they can actually do that. And if everyone stays healthy, if everyone does their job, I think they can. And from what we're hearing early on in spring training, is that they came from one game of making it to the playoffs. I think that itch wants them to get over that hump. And I hope that as we go throughout the course of this year and we see these kids develop even more, that Nick Kroll and the Castellinis will only improve or want to improve that status. Say, hey, we have a interesting ball club. How can we make it better? And we talked about this throughout the offseason of things that the Reds could do to make this roster better, adding to starting pitching, loading up that bullpen. Well, and adding a couple of power hitters, especially a couple right-handed power hitters to the outfield. And what we've seen so far is a bit of a dynamic and not what we are wanting, but we can understand that with the budget, with how the Castellinis run their ball club, this is the best that we're going to get. We saw the Reds add additions like a Jameer Candelario from Chicago, Nick Martinez. I remember back with the Padres. We're taking a risk on a Frankie Montas from the New York Yankees, Emilio Pagan, from Brent Sutter. So we're adding those, these veteran guys, okay, who's been around the league. When you talk about a guy like Brent Sutter, he's a relief pitcher in Colorado, puts up some great numbers. A lefty guy who could probably keep us in ball games late going on throughout the year. You're seeing when you see a Nick Martinez or Emilio Pagan, these are guys who have held their own with the Padres organization for years on to come. Emilio Pagan, nice and steady. Frankie Montas expected to be in our rotation this year. He's a veteran that we're hoping, hey, a change of scenery, he can actually perform well. So we don't have the Cody Bellingers, we don't have the Shohei Ohtani's, but we have the guys that can hopefully help us or teach us or guide us through the next 180 plus games, the next 7-8 months of the season that we have to endure. And it's what makes us exciting. The only thing, there's two things that we need to see change. We talk about how can the Reds, what can they do this season to improve? Well, and I was looking at this. These are expectations. Okay. I'm looking at, on a pitching note, there's 4 things that catches my eye. Okay. We got to keep the ball on the ground, you guys. Can't let up home runs. It's just impact. We're not going to win ball games when we go, when we put the ball in the air. Put the ball in the field of play. Let our defense make the plays, but put them on the ground, you guys. Less walks, please. I think that's warranted. Okay, we can't, when we walk, we can't be walking in base, the runner from third, with bases loaded. We have to be able to capitalize on our opportunities. Let me put it this way. We don't have a rookie rotation no more with our starting pitchers. Okay, I'm looking at this right now. Frankie Montas is a veteran. Okay, Hunter Green is a veteran. They marked down, let me see, Andrew Abbott. He's in a pre-arbitration conversation. So is Graham Ashcraft. Assuming Nick Lodolo as well. Okay, so, but here's my thing. We do not, other than maybe Andrew Abbott, Brandon Williamson, looking through here, Connor Phillips, Lion Richardson. We're not we have veterans in our rotation. Now, could the Reds always use an improvement and pick up another quality pitcher? Yes, but I think that will come under depending how our season will be put together and organized. So, throughout until the trade deadline. What I'm expecting out of the Reds are two things. One, pitching. Our starting pitching are not rookies no more. They're not sophomores no more. They've been in the big leagues before. They've understand the pressure and the situation that they were in. Just 2 years ago, they were coming up, and you know what? They had to fill on a tall task of, putting up numbers that, Luis Castillo and Sonny Gray was unable to because they began the season on the IL. Well, guess what? This is their team now. They have full-on control. They need to find a way to stay healthy, and they need to find a way to be consistent with the amount of innings they're putting up. We're talking about a solid 5-6 innings. We cannot allow our games to get to the bullpen early on when we're talking about thirds, fourth innings. It cannot happen. Not you gave, Hunter Green that contract extension, which gives him $3.3 million this year. You're asking a veteran pitcher to go out there and give you lights out work every 5 days. We're paying Frankie Montas. Okay. We're paying Frankie Montas $14 million to go out there and to have a bounce back career from what he has had with the Yankees. We want Nick Lodolo and Graham Ashcraft to step up a bit. And I want that too. Yes, there's going to be room for Andrew Abbott and Brandon Williamson and Connor Phillips to all get their chance at the major league. And we have to provide that separation and allow the back two of that rotation for those new young guys. But we have enough starting pitchers right now that we just have to hold them accountable, or else this bullpen's going to be eaten up with innings early on in the season. They're going to get tired. They're going to get hurt, and they're not going to be able to outlast anybody. So there's just no way that we just can't allow that anymore. All right. So consistency out of our starting rotation to allow our bullpen to do their jobs, to set up and close. And we have to, our bullpen has to step up too, because there was a lot of opportunity. There was a lot of blown games coming out of our bullpen where we had a comfortable 2, 3, 4 runs, into the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning, and we couldn't hold them down to the count. So a lot of bullpen, a lot of pitching in operation. Second thing, I think the expectation has to be set towards our position, our sophomores this year. Ellie De La Cruz, Matt McLean. We want to see another year of their success, and that's going to be a key thing. Whenever you see a new rookie come up there, they kind of come up and they make a splash, but then they settle into the big leagues. And it all depends how this team handles these players heading into their settlement year, which is right now. Yes, we still wait to see much more from Christian Encarnacion Strand. We still wait to see from Noelvi Marte. But we see guys like Ellie De La Cruz and McLean, and we have such a high expectation from what they had from last year that maybe it's time. Maybe we do have to see this ball club kind of take a step back and say, all right, let's send you back down to the minors, let you develop once more, and then come back up and see what you have. I remember, sometimes when you let them hit the water, they sink or swim. This is going to be that year. Overall, okay, before we head to break, I want to say this, okay? The expectations, I think, for a lot of Reds fans are very high. I think because we came so close last year from making it to the playoffs, they are really high. And I understand that. And I think we're in a division where you can have higher expectations because you're seeing the change in Milwaukee. in the rest of the division. But I'm looking at a long run situation, and that long run is taking a step back, reanalyzing everyone we have, making sure they are healthy, making sure they have all their T's crossed, and then going from there. Let's take a break. When we come on back, we're going to talk more Cincinnati Reds baseball. We're going to take a look at their payroll. We're going to take a look at their spring training, where we can see their, what we can see happen and take place. I got 4 former Reds that we may regret not keeping. I also have a list from each of the teams in the NL Central of the biggest, storyline for each of those teams that we'll talk about here. That all is still to come. Hour number 2. You guys are listening to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
You are now in the presence of a king.
Alrighty, Epidemic Sound. Discover your world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free music link. For more information, check out epidemicsound.com. I gotta sneeze. All right, like I said, SmackDown's going on right now. Roman and The Rock should be on at any moment if they're not on already. And but I'm saving that until probably afterwards. I may catch a little bit of it, see what happens. But I want to continue talking Cincinnati Reds baseball here, as here's what I gotta say. Watching Banana Mode too. So I guess got a lot of things going on here. But Cincinnati Reds baseball, as pitchers, catchers already out there. A lot of kids are already out there taking the field. And now it's time for position players, and spring training games officially begin next Saturday with the Guardians and Reds to kick things off. And as we head into spring training, like I said, listen, I'm not trying to bash on the Cincinnati Reds, and I'm not trying to sit here and put them down. And they played with a lot of heart and passion. Like I said, the expectations we had for Cincinnati heading into the season was not the expectations was not the expectations that we saw, right? I think we're set to just bypass another year, because there was just no moves being made. No one was picked up. No one was added on. We banked off of minor league prospects that we believe that we're still 2-3 years away, but they're up in the major leagues now. All right, our core guys. And the reason why you have them stacked is because, listen, 1 out of every 100 players are actually going to be a star someday. And we hope that Matt McLean, Ellie De La Cruz, Noelvi Marte, Christian Encarnacion Strand are, one of them at least becomes a megastar. And, a lot of times you get brought up as a rookie. It's fresh meat to the show, and you kind of have an excellent year. We've seen a lot of players come up and they have outstanding rookie years, even sophomore years in the league. And then they settle in, okay? And they hit their first slump. And it's all how I think a team handles a player's first slump on how I think, they will progress into a player they could be. my view is, and I call me old fashioned, call me an old timer when it comes down to this, but when I'm dealing with a rookie or a sophomore who's dealing with their slumps, I'd try to find a time or a way to put them back down in AAA to work on mechanics and just to take a step away from the spotlight. And then they could come up in a couple weeks or in a month or two and reevaluate their situation. I feel like a lot of players get thrown to the, deep end of the pool, sink or swim version, and that's all they have to offer. And so that's what I'm a fear of. There's a lot of expectations. I think a lot of people have high expectations of Elly De La Cruz. And I think one of the things that worries fans is that he put up a 243 batting average after the first month of being called up. And, I think that creates a lot of controversy. So, like I said, I could give the first, it all depends how the team develops these players is what we're going to see out of the Reds. And I don't, maybe we're listening, as a fan base, we're rushing them to be successful. And I want them to be successful. Yeah, I mean, I do, but is it worth rushing these players and rushing the process, saying that you need to go out and win this World Series this year over if you can generate, a 9-man lineup for the next 5 to 10 years through development? Because if everybody on that roster can prove to the Castellinis and Nick Krall that, hey, we're here, we're taking this seriously, we want to bring a championship to Cincinnati. We want to get paid, but we don't want to get paid. We want to get paid, but we're willing to take a pay cut so that we can have a championship team. Then I'm thinking, well, maybe, and hopefully, and maybe I'm talking batshit crazy about this, but hopefully, the Castellinis could take them seriously. But I wouldn't. I don't want to put my hopes up so high just to be let down. And then we have a 60-game winning season because Matt McClain, because everyone's settled in and our pitchers can't go 6-7 innings in a ball game. And we're stuck trying to scramble because everyone got hurt. But I guess time will tell. You look at the contracts that this Reds team has. Highest paid player of the ball club, active ball club, is Candelario, and he's a third baseman. He's 30 years old, $15 million. Highest paid Reds player active on the roster. Then you get Nick Martinez, Frankie Montas, Emilio Pagan, and you're going to get Candelario for 3 years. I don't know how long you have Martinez, Montas, probably for a few years, Pagan a year, India for 2 years. That's $4.5 million, or 3.8. And then you see Hunter Green, which is the only person I think we're going to be sticking around for a while. That's 3.3. You don't even you have Tyler Stevenson. Yeah. So a lot of other people are on pre-arbitration agreements ending into this. I don't know. Not necessarily a big fan of this. So I told you here that there were 4 players that I think the Reds would regret the most that they did not keep. And I'm going to go through this list. The first player on my list is Vladimir Gutierrez, who's been has been let go. He's trying to test his free agency side. I don't think he's picked up with a team yet, but he's definitely worked out with a couple teams. Number 2 is Harrison Bader, who was picked up by the Reds in the September call-ups when Angels dumped him, and we picked him up off of waivers. Nick Senzel, who actually had a bounce back year last year, and Ben Lively, who I think recently just left. When I look at these 4 players, I don't think we got a fair chance at looking at what Vladimir Gutierrez was able to bring to the table. Yes, he got hurt right away dealing with Tommy John issues. I just don't think we bounced back from there. That one's a hit or miss for me, because a lot of times, and this is from me understanding the past track record with the San Diego Padres when I was living out there and I was following Padres baseball, we'd pick up players and even veterans. I remember picking up Luke Weaver, who no, it was the other Angels, Garrett Richards, who ended up coming over to the Padres, jumping on the Tommy John surgery, never bouncing back. And time again, Padres will sign players needing Tommy John surgery, thinking that they would be able to make a bounce back, and they just didn't. And maybe we didn't give Vladimir Gutierrez enough time to determine that. But I think this Reds team was ready to move off of him regardless, because as we see Abbott and we see Brandon and we see Connor, along with the guys that we have already up there I still call them the Elite 3, and Hunter, Graham, and Nick. Where does Vladimir Gutierrez fit in the rotation? I just don't see it. And I think we even tried him out there in the bullpen, and it didn't work. Ben Lively, I just haven't seen enough of the kid to really make a determination. Harrison Bader, I got to tell you, he was a right-handed hitter. I didn't see why we couldn't at least make an effort either in Hunter Renfroe or a Harrison Bader. I don't feel like Nick Krall did his due diligence in attempting to keep one of those two guys, because they're right-handed batters and they provide a lot better pop, in my opinion, than a Spencer Steer out there in the outfield. But the guy that I think really upsets me, and I have completely changed the thought in this asset, is Nick Senzel. I was telling you guys last year that Nick Senzel was one of the guys on my radar to put up on the trade market and to get rid of as soon as possible. I was worried about what type of season he was going to have. But if anyone knew that they were going to hit the free agent market this season, one thing is that you're going to play how you play may be how other teams look at you. So Nick Senzel really pulled through. And I don't know. I mean, for me, he will fit at the top of the lineup. I don't think L.A. you could have been, for me, I could have saw Senzel, Dela Cruz, India, 1, 2, 3 guys, or something like that. But and the other great thing is Nick Senzel also fits at the bottom of the lineup as well. So I'm a bit bummed. He had a good season, but all I can say is I wish him the best. It's one of those things we're going to look back for. I'd like even look back at the end of this year and just see how these guys develop and make their way through the roster. When we come back from our final break, I'm going to take a look at the number one storyline from each of the 5 teams in the division, as well as how I can see spring training kind of just playing out. Bottom half of the program coming your way. You guys are listening to The Throne on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. You know, as we talk about Cincinnati Reds and as we look into a really deep dive this hour of the Reds and where expectations and where they sit among everyone else, it's only fair if we bring up the division. Before we do that, I just want to kind of pay our condolences. Let me just backtrack here for a moment because I don't remember when the Kansas City Chiefs parade on Wednesday ended up having a shooting. A couple of juvenile kids have been arrested among those shootings, among 22 injured. One fatality. So our condolences go out to the friends and family of Lisa Lopez Galvin, who ended up passing away due to the shooting event during the Kansas City Chiefs parades. It kind of bothers me because I've always wanted to kind of attend a celebration. I talked about this actually on the Cubicle chat earlier this week with Steve Barber in regards to, we had a discussion about the Super Bowl in general. And one of my thing was like, this kind of just ruins, it's supposed to be for a joyous celebration of a city's team's success. And you just, now it's like, well, when I've always wanted to go to one of them. I've always wanted to attend, for example, opening day, not just the game, but the parade and whatnot in Cincinnati. I think that's such a historic venue, and I think for those who get to attend, it's a special sight to see because an entire city stops, regardless if you're good or bad, and celebrates the rich history of the Cincinnati Reds. But that right there kind of rethinks for me is like, I don't want to take my kids to that. I just think about I wouldn't go. Also want to give our condolences out to Cincinnati Reds Hall of Famer pitcher Don Goulet, who died earlier this week at the age of 73. He pitched for the Reds from 1970 to 76. He was also the pitching coach for the Reds from 1993 to 2005. He entered the Reds Hall of Fame back in 2002. He was a 3-time World Series champion, 2 times with the Reds and 1 time with the Yankees. So condolences go out to his friends and families there. So as we get to spring training, we take a look at the other teams that are in our division and how this division will break down. Every team has a storyline, including the Reds. And let's kind of cover over that here real quick. In the Central, Milwaukee's number one story is this a postseason caliber starting rotation? And low key, Milwaukee is trying to restructure their team piece by piece. Trying to get rid of all the unnecessary contracts, all the big ones that's going to end up eating you up in the next couple years. Bringing in, new guys. They just sent Corbin Burns, which is, it's a relief for us. They just sent them over to Baltimore in a trade. I don't have the details on that. Maybe I do. Around here, somewhere in my notes all over the place. I had it a couple of days ago. Corbin Burns and was sent over to Baltimore. He's had a 10-8 record last season, 3.939 ERA, a 200 strikeouts, and almost 200 innings. In return, we're getting shortstop Joey Ortiz, left-handed pitcher DL Hall, and the 34th pick of this year's draft from Milwaukee. And I'm like, oh, okay, now you're resetting. But here's how that rotation looks, right? You got Freddie Peralta, Wade Miley, Jacob Jones, Colin Ray, DL Hall. And I'm just looking at it and I'm just like, Milwaukee is one of those teams that we'll get into later this spring training that when you go into facing them, and I'm aware that we're facing our division less, but when you're going into facing them, you kind of be like, oh no, here we go again. I mean, does our starting pitching match up to their starting pitching? And you should want to say yes. Hunter Green can go up against Wade Miley 5 days a week and should win 4 out of those 5 times, but you just you don't see that in the end result. So you kind of get that, just kind of get the notion of, well, we should win, but we're not going to win. And I'm still one of those firm believers that you need to go off of, you need to beat your division in order to win your division. The Cardinals' number one question is, how much improvement has this pitching staff made? We talked about Sonny Gray, who's been a recent addition to the Cardinals. No more Adam Wainwright, Miles Michaelis, Lance Lynn, Steven Matz, Kyle Gibson. They all look solid. Are they dangerous? I don't know. They're not. I don't think. I don't want to say they're not in their primes, but I'm going to say they're not in their primes. They're kind of teeter-tottering around all that. So you got some more veteran guys, or maybe either at the end of their prime or completely missed it. Then their bullpen looks at Ryan Heasley, Giovanni Gallegos, Jojo Romero. Nothing too exciting. I think it's their bullpen that really ends up costing their season. But, St. Louis kind of finished at the bottom of the division last year, and they got some names on their roster. The Chicago Cubs story is there still a big addition coming? And let's face it, because the Cubs haven't really made any special trades, moves, splashes on additions to their team just quite yet. One of the few teams that we haven't really seen do much of anything. Marlins over there on the other hand. But they came very short to the postseason. So can we see, are we still, what are we waiting to see Chicago? I mean, I think it'll be a dud if you don't get nothing, but let Chicago, and here's my take on this. Let Chicago, let Milwaukee, let St. Louis, and definitely let Pittsburgh make their own mistakes. The Pittsburgh Pirates storyline heading into spring training. Which second baseman proves the most? I think this is a good conversation, because when you have multiple players and you have options now that you can troll from, you got Liover Peguero, Nick Gonzalez, Juan Bay, Alika Williams, all contending this year for second base. But you're telling me out of the Pirates that's the only question that you have. That's the top question that you have heading into this year. And then the Reds question was, who will make the rotation? And you got 8 guys: Frankie Montas, Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Nick Martinez, Connor Phillips, Andrew Abbott, Brandon Williamson, Graham Ashcraft. None has made 30 starts in the big leagues yet. is not a problem. We look into the spring training and what we expect, unless we kind of just take one thing overall. I think there's a high expectation for the Reds, like I've said. Take a step back and let's kind of find our feet again. Let's not allow, yes, we want to win. Yes, there should be a thrive to win, but don't allow us coming one game short to dictate of where we are actually at. It's okay if we're not, an 80 plus win team quite yet. Maybe we walk away with 75. Maybe we're not a wild card team yet. And I'm fine with that as long as we're seeing progression. Baseball is one of those deals. It's not football. It's not basketball. It's not hockey. I don't think you could put a winning team together in one season and say, let's make it go. Yes, a lot of crazy things happen and we've accomplished a lot of those, but we got to bring ourselves back down to reality. This is still such a young team. As we look heading into spring training, looking at that rotation, I think Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, pending that he's healthy, Graham Ashcraft, Frankie Montez are almost a must in that rotation. That leaves room for a spring training battle between Connor Phillips, Andrew Abbott, Brandon Williamson, and let's not forget about Nick Martinez. Now, Nick Martinez could be the 5th-day starter. I personally would like to see a longevity pitcher like a Martinez who could eat up innings or who could give your ball club a bullpen day where you're pitching when you're going 14, 21 days straight. So I like to see Martinez out of the bullpen, and then that leaves room for someone like an Andrew Abbott, who right now I'm favoriting to begin the big league squad main roster opening day. When we look at our position players, I know Spencer Steer has been moved out to the right field. Jonathan India has signed that multi-year contract. I say Jonathan India, this is what it does to Jonathan India. Signing that multi-year contract now gives the Reds the leverage to trade him because now you have a price on India. Think about that. If you're planning on trading him either during the trade deadline this year or next year, now there is an actual price that the Reds in India has agreed upon. So you keep him one more year and then potentially trade him. I think it's a clever move, but you have to utilize each and every day with him, whether he's out of the DH, whether he's playing second base, whether he's over at third base, or whether he's playing some outfield. Jameer, I don't know the situation. There's no clear answer of what first base looks like. Jameer Candelario is a third baseman, but I can see him throwing him over at first until Christian Encarnacion Strand could get his feet, settled at first base. I don't know if he's making the starting day lineup coming opening day. But then let's not forget, you got a Tyler Stevenson. You also got a Luke Malley down there catching behind the plate that could play some first, especially Tyler Stevenson, who kind of I thought was going to be made more of a push last year. Maybe he'll do that this year. But then you also got Spencer Steer that they've tried to move out to the outfield. And we know he could play some first base as well as third base also. So I think right now the Reds and what they're truly missing, and this is where I think a lot of this is becoming astray, is that, we have Will Benson coming out in right field, but he's not a powerful hitter and he's not putting up the numbers that we need him. We're missing that right hand at bat. And we're trying to implement a Jonathan India and a Encarnacion Strand and a Spencer Steer into those right-handed powerful at-bats that I think we need to go out there and still find. And I'm not saying that that is the only piece we're missing in the course of this season, but it's probably the best that we're going to be able to do. I'm expecting spring training for, David Bell to take advantage of a lot of those scenarios of how this roster and how people could play different positions could take advantage of. So don't be surprised if we see Jameer Candelario play first and we see Noelvi Marte play a lot of third. Don't be surprised if we see Spencer Steer play a lot of outfield along with India from time to time. That's what spring training is good for. But I think they got, because I sure am. And I think we have room for success. But the same amount of concerns, the same amount of, excitement that I have for their success shows in the concerns I have for the development in the long run. I want to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comments, share on our social media pages. But that is all the time we had for our show. We will we'll stay tuned. Hey, head over to our website at www.tncsportstalkshow.com for the next episode that we have. We'll talk about the Roman and Rock segment that happened tonight on SmackDown after I watch it. We'll get ready for spring training games. We'll talk about Cincinnati news when we come back, all that and more. Hey, be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Until next time, thank you guys for tuning in to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Have a great weekend.